Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Alive and Well community. Thank you. We are so grateful that you are here with us this evening as we come in community and um, collective and in connection with one another as we um, really hold each other in healing and in restoration around violence in our communities and police brutality in our communities. And so we are going live all over the state of Missouri with Alive and Well communities so that we can support one another on the onset of the trial of Derek Chauvin of the murder of George Floyd, and realizing that while we are not in Minneapolis, we are also centered in space of trauma, in space of violence, in space of ongoing and re-triggering episodes that remind us what it means to be humans in the midst of this type of violence. And so we at Alive and Well Communities wanted very much to provide a space that is a space centered in our humanity, centered in our restoration, centered in recognizing that because of our humanity, we experience the trauma of this, even if we are not directly affected by it, and that we want to be with one another in community to help each other heal. We want to remind everyone that this is a healing and a restorative space. Any comments that are in any of the chats that are not reflective of our humanity and reflective of our intention and our mission and our vision will be removed. And we all here just want all of us to lean into our mutual ways in which we are human, and to lean into that, respect that, and honor that as we respect and honor and show love and admiration and thankfulness to George Floyd and to others who are victims of violence here in Missouri. So, with that in mind, we would like to take a moment, to think about the lives of loved ones that we've lost, to think about the lives of community members that we have lost, to think about the lives of neighbors that we have lost, to think about the lives of friends that we have lost, to think about the life of George Floyd that was sacrificed for us so that we could be in this moment right now, this crossroads, this revolution, this way in which we will move forward better. And so let us take a moment. Thank you all for being willing to be present with one another as we did that, and to center what is our intention tonight. So, with that in mind, I would like to introduce our first speaker, Dr. Terry Harris, who is a friend of Alive and Well, an advocate, an encourager, a supporter of our mission. He is also a husband and a father. He is an educator in a school district in the St. Louis metropolitan area. And more importantly, he is a man, a Black man who will share with us from his perspective the overarching theme of our communication tonight and ways in which we center ourselves in our restoration and our healing. Dr. Harris?
Cool. Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here with all of you. It's something special about being in space with people that you love and you care about. And I think that's the overarching theme that I really want to spend my time talking about. What does it mean to be in space with people that you love and care about? I'm not really going to talk too much about Derek Chauvin and some of these other individuals, because I think to do so is to center these people in ways that we not honor the lives of those individuals who have succumbed to violence in this country. And so I really want to center and celebrate the lives of the people that we're talking about, the people whose skin looks like ours on this call, the people who may identify as trans, the people who may have disabilities, those individuals in which America says that you're not American. I want to create a space where individuals understand that they are seen, that they're welcome, that they're heard, that they're loved, and they're appreciated. And that's going to be our overarching thing. Before we get started, I want to do something, because when I got the call to speak, I was really excited about it, and I had all these thoughts that I was going to share and all this. And I'm not going to lie to you, at 6:50, I end up having this anxiety attack. And I was trying to figure out, like, come on, man, I speak for a living. This is what I do. What's going on? And I realized that it's the topic in which that we're going to discuss today is triggering. And it's triggering for me, and I know it's triggering for a lot of people, which is why we're holding space and having this conversation. And so we have to take care of ourselves, take care of your body, and listen to whatever your body is telling you. And so I would like for you to indulge in this activity with me. If you can sit up straight, your back as straight as possible, spine is long, your throat is open so that your chin is not into your chest. Your feet are flat on the floor, and maybe you take your palms and you rub your palms on your thighs, or maybe you take your palms and you put your palms at your belly, or maybe you place your palms on your heart. I just want your palms somewhere on your hand where you can feel, or somewhere on your body where you can feel your body. And we all take an inhale and we just breathe. We don't control the breath. We don't fight the breath. We allow the breath to speak to us. So we breathe. George Floyd said 20 plus times that he can't breathe, and we can breathe. So we breathe. And every inhale, we're breathing for the people who came before us. We're breathing for our ancestors who had a hard time in this country. We breathing for the babies that we see on a daily basis, or we don't see, but we know they exist. And we breathe for all the babies in the future. We breathe. And we just notice. And when each inhale, maybe the exhale is a little bit longer. And maybe your shoulders start to relax a little bit. And without adding anything, without being mean to yourself, hard on yourself, just simply ask yourself, what are you feeling? Simply ask, what are you feeling? And just notice what you're feeling. Allow yourself to be with your feelings. And if you're not okay, tell yourself it's okay not to be okay. And if you're okay, tell yourself it's okay to be okay. And here we go. We're going to inhale. We're going to bring our hands all the way up. Our palms touch, so our palms are over our head. Nice. And then we exhale. We let those hands fall to the side really slow. One more time. We inhale. We bring our hands all the way up. Our palms touch. And then we exhale and we let those hands fall. This is what we call the collective breath. So it's a big inhale. Bring those hands all the way up. Your palms are going to touch. Open mouth, exhale. You bring your hands down to your heart in a prayer position. And then we bow and we say Ubuntu, which means I am because you are because I am. I want to ground our conversation in the fact that we have to live this spirit of Ubuntu. We have to realize and understand that this South African phrase says that I am because you are because I am. We are in this thing together. So when we start thinking about this trial and what we need to do, we have to create three things, I think, for us to get through these next couple of weeks and beyond. We have to create space We have to create community, and we have to create movement in the body. So we know that the trauma book, The Body Keeps the Score, or My Grandma's Hands, or these books that are talking about Black violence and what it does to the body and how the body starts to hold things. And so you may find yourself not being able to sleep at night. You may find yourself eating a lot or not eating at all. You may find yourself irritable because the body is keeping that. The story of Black people in America is a story of violence. It's a bloodline of violence that runs through us. It's the intergeneration transmission of trauma that we all have. And so somehow we're going to have to start to release some of this trauma. So how do we create space, and what does that space look like? This welcoming space for individuals, holding space. I was just listening to a podcast today, and it said that during this time of this trial, the people are creating what they're calling wailing spaces. Simply put, spaces where individuals can come and just cry and just be. How do we create space? That space should look like a warm, welcoming space that's not triggering. That space should have items and things that we bring to the table that remind us of times that we're happy, and that people who that we know that brings us joy. So maybe you create a mantle. How do we create community? Bringing in calling on the people that we feel like are strong individuals, because the strong people are the people who are holding all these things together, the people who are holding us together. So how do we make sure that we're checking in on Cecilia, Jorge, Asia, Lester, the Terrys in the world, to make sure they're okay? And then we have to do something to move our body so we can get some of that emotion out, some of that stress out. Stress kills. The CDC just came out today. So how fitting that we're having this call, and the CDC just came out today with a document that said that racism is a threat to health. It's a national health crisis. The CDC, the same CDC that says that the coronavirus is a pandemic, is now exploring what this issue of race and racism is doing to our country. I will encourage everyone to take a look at the report that CDC just put out today. So we need to hold space for those individuals that we love. We need to make sure that we're in community, and healthy ways in community, right? So there are all kinds of ways that we can have community, but healthy ways of community. So maybe we're reading together, we're eating together, and we're not, we're not doing drugs and alcohol and doing these different things, right? We want to create healthy spaces and healthy communities. And then some activity. So with us, I own a yoga studio with my wife and a few other partners. And so we practice and do yoga and mindfulness and meditation. Whatever that activity is, maybe the activity is walking. Maybe the activity is playing basketball. Maybe the activity is jumping rope, swimming, you name it. We have to do those three things: space, community, and an activity. And then we have to start telling the truth. Here's a truth that we have to tell. The truth that we have to tell is that George Floyd is our son, right? But so is the officers and all the other officers. They're our babies. They were our people. The same system that birthed and created George Floyd is the same system that created the person that killed him. And so what happened? How did these individuals get to a point and a place where there was a complete disregard for life? What happened? So we look at George Floyd dying, but we also have to take a look at our educational system. Dr. Bettina Love out of Georgia wrote an article called Spirit Murdering, and how school systems are spirit murdering kids, Black and brown kids, on a daily basis. We also have to take a look at our employee systems, our jobs, and how they're low wage workers and not able to have enough money to take care of their kids and their families. All of these systems are in place, and these systems are doing exactly what happened to Derek, or what happened to our brother George, which is choking us. And because we're in this bloodline of trauma that has been passed on, we have to figure out ways to take care of ourselves. And the way that we're going to do that is through the spirit of Ubuntu. So listen to this also, that we have to talk about the trauma and the pain of Black and brown people, but we also have to accept and celebrate the joy as well. We cannot just simply talk about the pain and the trauma, because that's one side of our story, but there's the other side of our story, which is liberation, joy, and happiness and community. Lucille Clifton in 1993 wrote this poem, "Won't You Celebrate With Me?" She said, "Won't you celebrate with me what I have shaped into a kind of life? I had no model. Born in Babylon, both non-white and woman. What did I see to be except myself? I made it up here on this bridge between starshine and clay. My one hand holding tight, my other hand. Come celebrate with me that every day something has tried to kill me and has failed. Every day something has tried. These systems, this system of oppression, the system of racism, these systems that are in place are trying to kill us every day. And we are here because they have failed. We have to start celebrating what it means to be a Black and brown person in this space. We also have to really deal with the fact, like I said earlier, I said the same thing during Michael Brown's death, that officer was also a kid that was in a school, a person that was at a church. What happened? How did we get to this moment where we forgot this spirit of Ubuntu? How are we not living that spirit of Ubuntu in a way that says that we're all connected? And so this question about Ubuntu really rests with who is human. And the fact that some individuals believe other individuals are not human is what we're wrestling with. Simply put, Black and brown people in this space are fighting to be human. For our breath to be human. We have to start admitting that the Black breath has been politicized. We have to admit that the Black breath is been in isolation. And we have to admit that the Black breath is not seen as human. Truthfulness is a foundation of all human virtues. In this space, when we create our space, when we create our community and our movement, we're doing so in truthfulness. And the last thing that I would say that is true is I love your Blackness. I love your brownness. I love your trans identity. I love who you bring to this table. And you're welcome in my space. You're welcome as part of my community. You're seen, you're heard, you're loved, and you get to move through this space unapologetically and be free in who you are. We find our people. We create space for our people. We love our people. We affirm our people. We hold our people. We smile at our people. We rejoice with our people. And we simply celebrate knowing that all the systems that tried to kill our people have failed. Space, community, and an activity, movement. We have to. That's all I got.
That was more than enough. Thank you, Dr. Harris, so much. And thank you for centering us in our humanity, in our beauty, in our miraculousness, in our magnificence. And thank you for centering us in our love for one another and how what we must do to create Ubuntu. I am because you are because I am. And recognize on the many shoulders in which we stand to get here, and how we create communities of safeness and communities of bravery, communities of care, communities of connection, communities of love for our students and their families, as well as our community members. Places where we can speak openly and bravely about not only our trauma, but also our resilience and our shared humanity and being able to move through that. Thank you, Dr. Harris.
Thank you.
So I would like to invite next to speak one of our Alive and Well community ambassadors from the southeast part of the state in the Boot Hill. Oftentimes people think about violence and police brutality and think that that only resides in urban areas. And so we are very intentional about wanting to have the wonderful Mr. Lester Gillespie. Mr. Gillespie, it's been a long time. I haven't seen you since the summer with Medicaid. And so we're so very glad that you are here and that you will be sharing about your experience with violence in rural areas. Thank you, Mr. Gillespie.
Okay, thank you. Can everyone hear me? Great. Hey, I just want to start off by saying that I'm excited about the trauma work that's going to be occurring in the Boot Hill, because we do have issues with police officers just totally disrespecting the Black community in some cases. So I just want to start by talking about how the Black community is targeted from a systematic standpoint as it relates to racism, and how it is so structured to the point to where it's a way of life. And so I just want to begin with our school system and how a kid could be in the first grade, a young man could be in the first grade, and he has that sparkle in his eyes to learn, to be creative, to be free, to be energetic. And then he goes to the second grade. And once he's in the second grade, he has that twinkle in his eye, he's energetic, and he's creative. Once he enters the third grade, and I asked myself, what happens to our little boys in the third grade? That is exactly the same time that they start testing. And when they start testing, like whether it be the MAP test or any kind of test to determine whether they're proficient or non-proficient. And what happens is when those little boys start failing those tests without being nurtured, without being without having the opportunity to be taught in such a way that our grandmothers used to teach us, how they used to talk to us, how they used to hold us. Every time we get sick, they get closer to it. So even in the educational system, nurturing has to occur because we're building relationships. And so when they hit the third grade, that sparkle leaves their eyes. Now, the other side of that is when that happens, the penal system. So now I'm going from school to the prison pipeline. The penal system, they call around to all school districts to find out who is proficient and who is non-proficient. And the reason why they do that is because they are forecasting how many prison beds they're going to have in 10 to 15 years based on how these kids are tested, how these young men are tested. Now, so even at that point, at that state, the Black young man is already part of a system that they really don't even know about. And then what happens as that child grows up and end up in junior high, middle school, or whatever the case may be, still can't read because the nurturing is not there, and he might not have the support that he needs at home. Okay. So once that child starts getting in junior high and then he makes one mistake, they're not going to look and say, oh, you made a mistake, we're going to give you another chance. They're going to be looking at your grades. They're going to be looking at all the things that constitutes a failing child. That's what they're going to be looking at. Instead of saying, of course, we all know when it comes to trauma, instead of saying, what's wrong with you, why they're not saying what happened to you. So I say that because it's very important to be able to assist our young men. Because I tell you, there's a sense of urgency in making sure that our young men have a fighting chance. And so in the Boot Hill, where I'm from, it is a predominantly white area. We have pockets of African Americans in certain communities. Like where I'm from, Charleston, there's a nice sized population of Blacks. Caruthersville has a nice population of Blacks. Hayti has a nice pocket of Blacks, but it's far in between. And so the structure that's in place to put us in a situation where this middle school kid now is in a juvenile system and he has no way of knowing how to navigate the system so he can turn it around, because everything therefore after that is negative and everything is to his disadvantage rather his advantage. And so what I'm really concerned with when it comes to police brutality is that in the Boot Hill we have had a couple murders by some police officers, killing a young man who had some mental health issues. We also had a situation where a young man from out of town had came into our community from Nashville, and he had mental health issues, and they he went to the jail, and they said that they had that he was struggling a fight, and then he was killed. And so throughout all of that, this happens time and time again in these rural areas, and to the fact to where we don't come together as a community, as Black folk. That's what I'm going to say. As minority folks, come together and let our voices be heard. And so my whole thought process is that as a community, when you're talking about facing those type of actions from our police officers, we have to unite and let our voices be heard, whether it be through our city government, whether it be through our commissioners, whether it just be through our local legislators. I was so pleased that they had passed a law in the state of Missouri that prevents any type of choking in the event of a arrest or detainment. So that's a good sign, but we got so much work to do. So much more work to do. And so getting back to that prisoner pipeline, as I see young men on the street corner, and then I see young men who want to do better, but all the negativity that has been brought into their space by people who are in leadership positions, putting them down and things of that sort, it's hard to combat that if you don't have the necessary skill sets or the tool sets to be able to navigate that type of shortcoming. And so I just hope that tonight that this is a new beginning, a new start for all of us to dig deep down inside and find healthy ways to voice ourselves, to voice our opinions, and to voice and to build upon this platform that we're talking about tonight, and let it spread and let it grow, so that we can definitely be in charge of building relationships within our own community, and
Yes.
then coming together and speaking from a standpoint of unifying and amplifying our voices so they will be heard. And so with that, that's all I have. And I thank you all. And to the doctor, what you said, man, that was right on target. And I hope to meet you in person, Dr. Harris. And maybe some one of these times we can get you down to Boot Hill to do some work, or even come and speak to a group of young men that is facing these type of acts from the police. So
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Gillespie. We really appreciate you, and we appreciate the work that you do. And thank you for highlighting the school to prison pipeline and the things that we are facing in Missouri, all over Missouri. And while Mr. Gillespie highlighted what is happening to boys, let us not think it is not also happening to Black girls and brown
yeah,
girls, because it is. And so we find ourselves having to intentionally interrupt this pipeline and the push out that is happening of our young girls and young ladies, and of our young men. And so thank you for highlighting that. We really appreciate you, Mr. Gillespie. Last but not least, I would like to introduce a peer, a colleague, a friend here in the Kansas City area, who works very intentionally and very specifically with students in urban core, as an educator, as a teacher, as a peer, as a friend. And so I'd like to introduce Jorge Fuller. Jorge, please share.
Yeah, before I start talking, I had to make sure I unmute myself because I will go. I start off with saying that I had a twofold relationship with police and interactions with them. From an early age, watching my father, who's an alcoholic, get arrested. Um, those things kind of traumatize what you think, even though they're there to protect and to serve, you're seeing a loved one being carried away. And even though it was of his own actions and accords, it was still watching this occur. Growing up, I was always warned because my grandmother came from Clarksville, Mississippi. And she said, be careful. Let me know when you make it there. Be careful. Let me know. And as a teenager, like, I'll be all right. I'm just going down the street. And it was early 2005 when I had my first interaction where a rifle was pointed at me. And this is a horrible experience as a teenager with braces who was curious about why the helicopter is flying, and now going back towards the house or the residence of my brother where I was supposed to be at in the first place. And the immediate reaction that I had was hands up, get to the ground before they could even do anything else. Did not realize that was more so a survival instinct and more so of a trauma instinct because I was looking down the barrel of a rifle pointed at me, all because an officer was shot around the corner. They patted me down, they put me in handcuffs, they questioned me, they didn't ask for a parent or guardian, didn't ask questions to them. I was a black male. At the time, I just kind of was like, all right, whatever, push it off, leave it alone. But every time I started hearing the helicopters, it would bring me back to the moment where I saw an officer pointing his rifle at myself and my brother's sister. And we were both sitting here like, what do we do? Because I was enraged, I was terrified, I was fearful, and we were at risk, and not knowing how much of a risk we were at. Because I still didn't take into account that his hand was still on the trigger. I could have lost my life for a simple misidentity because I was just a black male who decided instead of staying inside the house to be outside. The next interaction that I had, not even a year later, I had walked through a crime scene and not even known it, going to my brother's house in the same direction. And I hear the helicopter, and everywhere we went, I went up to Liberty, went back from Liberty, came back to Midtown, and I still had this helicopter flying around me. And I'm just like, what is going on? Not knowing that I was considered a suspect, not knowing that I was considered guilty of something that I had no awareness of. There was no tape. There was no police cars. There's nothing to say that this is what you were walking into, because I'm sure if I just saw it, I would have avoided it. Another interaction as an adult in my early 20s, waiting outside of my mom's job. Snow on the ground. I'm in my car. My car hadn't moved. It was actually turned off. The officer pulls up behind me. Immediately after getting out of his vehicle, his gun is drawn and pointed at me. And I'm like, yo, I'm just sitting here. I haven't moved. Well, your car fits the description. And I'm like, well, before you can even do anything, why is your hand on your gun? See, I was raised in a church where I had the head pastor was a police officer, our choir director was a police officer, and I knew police officers as friends. So I don't understand why I was going through traumatizing events where my life was at risk from officers that obviously did not look like me. Obviously did not live in the area that I'm from. Obviously we're going off of descriptions where no matter what, I'm going to fit it. I was a black male. I was in a vehicle, or I walked through this area, or this is that. It doesn't even matter because they don't even look at height. But I will say that all those interactions still goes back. And I remember in 2008 at the election, the night Obama was elected, and I was going home with my friend, and we got pulled over because our headlights were not all the way turned on. Excuse my dog. The cats are outside. The headlights weren't turned on, and his immediate reaction was like, "Oh no, I just can't. I just got out of jail. I just got out of jail. I just paid my warrants. I can't go back. I don't have." And I'm like, "Why are you so afraid?" And I'm also on the phone with my mom. Like, "Hey, mom, I'm getting pulled over. I don't know what to do. I need you to make sure." And those are instincts that I was told and taught, passed down generation to generation, because my grandmother, my mother's mother, was the one that said they will take you out of your car, put you on the ground face down, and treat you like a dirty dog. And it happened. They will arrest you and put you in handcuffs and put you in bondage without asking any questions and knowing who you are or what you're about. And it happened. They will point their guns at you, and you could potentially lose your life. And this is the only thing that you're shared because you're a black male. My twin sister did not have to have that same conversation, did not have to have those same warnings, did not have to have the same concept, because it was not something relevant for her. Then I remember as an educator teaching my students that the saying of "you're a big black and male," and you have to be mindful of what you do because they are looking at you as a threat no matter what. And understanding that I'm teaching them some of the same rhetoric that was taught to me, but these are life warnings. I want to see you live. I want to see you grow. So when we talk about organizing our communities and organizing to speak, I would say you have to elevate people not only to organize, but also run for elected offices. You have to tell them to be courageous enough to put their name out there and be willing enough to go through all the mud that's going to be thrown at them, because when they run for office, we can make the difference. When we have enough support and voicing behind us, we make things happen. We saw it in St. Louis. And I'm mentioning it because they just elected their first black female mayor this past Tuesday. And I know I have family over in St. Louis that's elated, and we see that they are able to go through and have these conversations and make these movements, such as Black Lives Matter, occur and be relevant not only in Missouri but nationally.
Yes. Thank you, Jorge.
So,
Thank you.
thank you for allowing me to be in and share, and hopefully we work for harmonizing and not just unifying.
Thank you, Jorge. Last but surely not least, we would like to introduce you to one of Alive and Well's community ambassadors in St. Louis. She does wonderful work with our schools, with our communities, with our young people. She is a very gifted artist and poet and spoken word artist. And we would like for Miss Asia Owens to share her gifts and her talents with us.
All right, thank you. I just want to echo the sentiments of everybody who spoke before me. And Jorge, when you were speaking, I definitely agree with everything you said. I through the work of Alive and Well, was inspired to run for council and want to just get in deeper and do the work. But I do want to share a couple of pieces if you guys don't mind. They're short pieces, but one of them, the first one I want to share with you is actually one that I wrote right after Mike Brown was murdered. And it's actually called Value of a Man. So it says, black body lay slain for going against the grain, for being who you knew to be unapologetically. Walking subconsciously into your cruel and final hour, diminished because of their ignorance masqueraded as power. Our faith is being tested. We often feel neglected, surviving within a system where we feel so unprotected. And your body was sacrificed at the hands of an erratic man who refused to see your value and couldn't comprehend that you too were a man. So that's a piece that I dedicated to Mike Brown. Then I also just my sister and I wrote a book together called On Being Black, and this book, I mean, it's just basically a lot of pieces that we kind of like pulled together, speaking is exactly to the content of what we're talking about. So this first one that I want to do, I just want to do this on another one, another short one, is actually about George Floyd, and it's called I Can't Breathe. I can't breathe. You suffocated life right out of my body in broad daylight. Like I was nothing more than the piece of the concrete you pressed my face into. So I called out for my mama. She didn't hear my screams, but you did. Yet you pressed harder and you never let up. Even when you realized that my breathing had stopped, you pressed harder. Every moment of my last moments were captured live for the world to see. Onlookers pleaded for you to let me breathe. Check my pulse, not let me die in the streets. Like I'm nothing more than the piece of the concrete you pressed my face into and continued to press harder until I could not breathe. So that's about George Floyd. And the last one I'm gonna do, because one of the things that we do realize, especially doing this work around trauma, is that we're constantly just dying at the hands of the police, and even just in our community amongst each other, our lives are not seen as valuable. And so one of the things that we notice, as soon as somebody passes away, it's hashtag say their names, hashtag, Black Lives Matter, hashtag this. So I call this piece hashtag, and I think you guys will get it, at the end, but it's called hashtag. Why we gotta be a hashtag? Why we gotta lose our lives? Why we gotta be seen as criminals? And why we gotta hide our pride? Why we gotta fear police? Why we gotta hide our wives? Why we gotta work harder? Why do we gotta disguise that we're wise? Why we gotta prep our children? Why we gotta hide our prize? Why we gotta accept less? Why we gotta accept lies? Why we gotta be a hashtag? Why we gotta keep on trying? Why we gotta keep on crying? Why do we have to keep on dying? I don't want to be a hashtag. I don't want to be a say their name. I just want to leave a legacy, not fill with blood and pain. I don't want to be a hashtag. That's it.
I don't want to
Thank
be
you
a
so
hashtag
much.
either.
Absolutely. I don't want to be one either. Not that kind.
Too many hashtags.
Too many hashtags. Thank you so much, Asia. We really
no
appreciate
problem.
you, and we appreciate all the work that you do in our communities throughout the St. Louis metropolitan area. Thank you so very much.
Thank
So,
you.
you're welcome. I'm going to turn it back over to Dr. Harris for Dr. Harris to close us out with some next steps, some ways to heal, some ways to have joy, and some ways to lead us back more into our humanity and restoration.
I think that thank you. Thank you everyone for being on this call. It was really wonderful and good to just be in space with you. I think that listening to Jorge, listening to Mr. Lester, and the three poems that we just heard, I have to center, and probably even listening to myself, I have to center the fact that there's a lot of hurt and pain that we have as people who are on this panel. And so, if I'm thinking about the words of my dear sister, Dr. Billy Mayo, she would talk to us about like deep level of healing. And so, as much as we are these people who are writing these poems and we're leading these movements and we're running for council and different things like that, we must make sure we're creating space and to take care of ourselves. And so I think if there's a way to get outside and walk, we should be able to do that. If the call on the people that you love, all those things I mentioned earlier. I just want to say 2 points, and I want to close this out with like just a quick meditation. One is that, people talk a lot about radical love, radical self-care, radical is not the natural normal state of being. So the reason that people are talking about radical anything is because there's oppression on the other end, right? The natural state of being is self-care. That's all. I'm taking care of myself. Radical self-care is because there's forces or barriers that are preventing us to do so. The other thing is this paradox of parenting while Black, where you want your kids to be liberated and to be free, but yet we tell our kids that they, you have to do this when you see the police, and you have to do this when you see this person, right? And then we're sending these mixed messages. We're going to have to wrestle with that. So maybe we can have another call around the paradox of parenting while Black. And I think that the last piece that is really, 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 really critical for us, for me, I'm just going to say this, is the understanding that policing is part of a system, just like a person who's a grocery store worker, just like something else. the deeper level of work that we have to do, and others who identify as white or others have to do, is to really focus on the human level. So if we focus all of our energy on the system of policing, it's just going to shift to something else. That's all it's going to do. It's going to shift to something else. The question that America has to wrestle with is, who get to be human? You guys remember that very famous poem, Ain't I a Woman? I've been thinking about that a lot, right? Ain't I a human? Like, who gets to be human? And so I think like the next step for us on this call and Alive and Well and these freedom dreamers and builders is to really center humanness and what that looks like in all spaces. And then that's the call out. Any system that is not allowing one to be free and fully human and authentic is a system that is oppressive, and you can name it whatever. It can be policing, it can be education, it can be whatever. Our work as Black people have to be stepping into our humanness and enjoying all of who we are, and not allowing any system to oppress that. So I just wanted to center that. I think, of course, we're talking about policing now, but that's just one piece of the system. So let's close out with a quick little meditation. So if you place your hands on your thighs, or your feet is flat on the floor. Actually, let's take our right hand, place your right hand on your heart, your left hand, place your left hand at the base of your stomach. This is really quick. If you want, you can close your eyes or lower your gaze. And again, just kind of come into your breath and come into your body and just breathe. And I'm gonna say some words, and I just want you to repeat after me to yourself. So don't say it out loud. Right. Be gentle with yourself. Be gentle with yourself. Today, I give myself permission to be gentle with myself. Today, I give myself permission to be gentle with myself. I will be gentle with myself, for I am a human being, no less than the trees and the stars. In the crazy chaos of life, I keep peace in my soul. I give myself permission to be gentle with me. Last time. Today, I give myself permission to be gentle with me, with myself, for I am a human being, no less than the trees and the stars. In the crazy chaos of life, I keep peace in my soul. We simply blink open our eyes, we call on our loved ones, and we tell them to be gentle with themselves, to celebrate their humanity, and that they're loved. Peace, y'all.
I hope everybody's breathing that in, that we are loved, that we can be gentle with ourselves, that we are made of star stuff, because in fact we are, that we are human, and we are soft and tender as much as we are strong and resilient. Please remember these stories that you heard from Dr. Harris, Jorge, and Mr. Gillespie. Please reflect on the poems and let them run through your body, your soul, your mind, your spirit, the gifts that Asia brings. Please reflect on one another. We, as Black people and brown people and indigenous people and other people of color who are experiencing things that everyone else is not. Please remember these things. Please center these things. Please make it a part of your purpose. Please make it a part of your advocacy. Please make it a part of your allyship. Please make it a part of your joy. Joy is a revolutionary act, as is loving ourselves when everything else tells us that we should not. That's revolutionary. So please go out there and be revolutionary and give yourself permission today. Give yourself permission today. Thank you all so very much. Thank you, Asia. Thank you, Jorge. Thank you, Mr. Lester. Thank you, Dr. Harris, for being here and gifting us with your time and your talents. We are so very appreciative. we're going to hold space, you all, for restoration and healing. If you so choose, we will hold space. We have a social worker who is a part of our Alive and Well family, along with one of our Alive and Well colleagues and friends, Sean Mraz, who is going to hold space of restoration, of healing, of community for anyone who would like to join. There's a Zoom link, I believe, that's being put in the chat. So if that is a place that you would like to go to, please do. We want to thank you all for being here. We recognize we ran a little bit over. And as my grandmother says, when the spirit goes, you don't stop that. And the spirit was going, and we needed to be with one another. We needed to love on one another, and we needed to be in community. So thank you. Thank you, Alive and Well communities. We want to really thank Layla, who is a part of our Kansas City team, as well as Polly Rios, who is the new co-director for community activation out of our St. Louis region, for really utilizing all their gifts and talents to move this forward and to help us get here, along with Sean Mraz, who is our director of training, Abe Stokes, who is our director, Kansas City director for Alive and Well communities. Thank you all for all the work that you have done to get us to this point. And thank you all for being with us. We hope that your evening is wonderful and full of light and love, and that you get a good night's rest tonight. So thank you all so much. Thank you for being here.